So this is February 11th, 2019 at the League of Women Voters. And we have a cast of bad characters from Mosaic, the county, and other nefarious individuals that are touting how good Mosaic is. So let's hear what I've got to say,
Next question.
and we'll see what happens.
Judging from the line, I'll just stay here. Glenn's got something for me.
My name is Glenn Giblina. I'm a community activist, and my question is for you. I'm a numbers guy, and I deal with facts. So the facts are we have tourism and we have phosphate mining. So which are the better of the two? If you look at Sarasota County, who, by the way, doesn't allow any phosphate mining, and they're booming. So let's look at the numbers. In the last 20 years, and this is violation tracker, okay, Mosaic has accumulated $851 million in fines. Now, if I were gonna have a trucking company and somebody had 15 driver's license violations and one had none, who would I pick? So you're right. They may have the right to operate, but not under these. They had 28 environmental fines, 23 work safety violations, railroad wage and hour labor, on and on and on. Who puts $1 billion aside for fines? 2015, $810 million fine. You're a bad steward of our property, particularly in Manatee County. 2009, $34 million in fines. 2016, just a few years ago, 4 million fines at the Lake Wales. On and on and on. You are not a good steward of the land. We do not need phosphate mining. And your spiel about feeds the world, I guess we don't have any organic farmers because I'm one of them, and we do very well without your fertilizer. So when are you going to straighten out your act and quit piling up billions of dollars worth of fines? That's the track. This is your track record, and anybody can look it up at Track Vision on the internet. Those are the facts. You're a bad steward of the line. You don't belong in Manatee County.
So, can I make some remark addressing?
So they're habitual offenders. They will continue to be habitual offenders. And Manatee elected officials could care less. They just gave it another 4,000 acres in the Four Corners mine to mine, and their reclaim process, they got another 18-year extension. And by the way, I looked up the LLC that has the agreement with Manatee County. They're a shell corporation. They don't have very deep pockets. So if they have a catastrophic event, and I assume they will have one, they're just going to file bankruptcy, just like they did at Piney Point, and the taxpayers are going to get stuck for their bad behavior. When is enough enough?
Can I make some remark addressing before we just line up this? So one of the things that was brought up was this settlement that Andy brought up, which was $2 billion. So what that was is the entire phosphate industry was interpreting the bevel exemption that's under the law differently than the EPA saw it. And this was a matter of how you mix your waste streams on site. It's not a matter of a release. It's not a matter of something that went off site. It's a matter of how you mix those waste streams on site. And the biggest component of that 1.8 billion of that 2 billion that everyone cites was money that we set aside into a trust fund. And that money that we set aside into a trust fund guarantees the funding for the closure of all the active stacks that we are operating in the state of Florida and Louisiana. So, Charlie mentioned Piney Point, where there was an operator that went bankrupt and walked away from it, and left the state with that on their hands. They left two. They left Piney Point and they left Mulberry Phosphates. We have been the ones closing Mulberry Phosphates for the state because of its proximity to another facility where we can get rid of that processed water, we can consume that processed water. So that one hasn't created as much angst as Piney Point, where it doesn't have the advantage of that geography. But okay, one last sentence then. So what that trust fund did was ensured that would never happen again. The closure of those stacks is paid for.
Doesn't
It's
cover
already set aside.
It does not cover catastrophic events. That's the problem.
Especially for Charlie Hunsicker, but I want to correct you with your list of where does
Go get him,
phosphate
Candy.
come now, because China stopped mining phosphate last year because it's too harmful to the environment and there are too many regulations that would be violated in order for them to continue. So now they're buying from Florida now.
No, they exported about 14 million tons last year.
That's what I said. They stopped.
And they're still exporting.
Okay, my questions are for Charlie. Why is nobody in our county testing or addressing any of the cyanobacteria or hazardous chemicals in our water? I did a test myself, which I have in my hand here, that identified 4 different neurotoxins, specifically anatoxins, saxitoxins, microcystins, and cylindrospermoxins. And everyone seems to be focused on red tide as a source of all the pollution and death of aquatic life. And the truth of the matter is only a small portion of the issue is from red tide. Mosaic discharges numerous toxic chemicals into our waterways, but because they dilute them to what is considered acceptable levels, no one seems to care that they're still dumping the same amount of crap. Our county knows that Piney Point is a huge disaster waiting to happen. If a large breach occurs, yet continues to issue new permits for them to continue doing the same thing out east where nobody actually sees it. These same chemicals are being dumped into Lake Manatee, Manatee River, Myakka River, and the Peace River. And no one has any source or drinking water tests for Manatee County or the city of Manatee since 2017.
They can't answer that.
Radiation, source or drinking water, and I would like to see that weekly tests being done by an outside independent lab to ensure that our water is safe. And I'm going to also add to Becky's comment, my greyhound just died 2 weeks ago from bone cancer as well.
How are you? My question is actually for the Mosaic representatives. My name is Luella Phillips. I'm from Getting the Word Out Environmental Truth and Florida 67 Environmentalist United Coalition. I live in Mulberry. I'm 3.7 miles from that sinkhole, and y'all can see I'm getting emotional because these people are full of it. I live every day 3 miles, a little over 3 miles from the Mosaic sinkhole. I live in between Hooker's Prairie, where you leave your tailings piles. I live 5 miles as the crow flies from the Mosaic facility on Highway 60. And I live 3.7 miles, like I said, from the Mosaic sinkhole. My question to you is, why doesn't Mosaic pay an outside representative or an outside tester for our water? You come in and you say, oh, your water's okay. But when the first 9 wells came up high in radiation, you said you weren't responsible for that. You couldn't take responsibility because you had no prior records to compare them to. In 89, 90, early 90s, and late 80s, ECT came in and checked our water for IMC. But they did check for a few more things than what ECT is checking for now. You guys don't check for anything that can't be regulated by the EPA. You check for pH balance, a little salt here and there. You don't check for the heavy metals that you're putting in there that could have been dumped by that sinkhole and was. Not including the sinkholes prior to that happened at IMC. Not including the dam that broke at Highway 60 and had a fish kill for 40 miles. What I want to ask you is, how come you don't come out and test our water for what you're actually dumping into it? ECT is an environmental consultant. They show you how to make money, where to save money. You're telling them what to test for, but you're not testing for what you actually dumped in there. And as far as those environmentalists, I think you're giving us a bad rep because we're not here to stop Mosaic. We're here to stop you from dumping your crap on our children and our families and our environment.
This important forum. All right, for many a decade, I have attended dozens of Manatee County Commission meetings where Mosaic Mining has sought approval for further destruction of Florida's landscape. In relation to my question, I attended the 2012 Phosphate Conference in Punta Gorda that Charlie mentioned, where Dr. Nora Demers gave a PowerPoint presentation explaining how Mosaic attempts to claim their reclamation and release rate as being over 40%. This was the 2012, okay? We're going there. And what this did was Mosaic contradicted her claims, which stated The actual reclamation and release rates were only in the low